What's going on, guys? My name is RagingRaptor and welcome to a new World of Tanks video, and today I want to give you my thoughts and first impression about the Sandbox servers artillery rebalancing. This is now once more an iteration, and today Wargaming basically said that they are more or less happy with the shell rebalance for normal tanks, the HE rebalance of normal tanks, and now want to move on to artillery. And I actually had to do a little bit of digging and actually had to do a little bit of testing myself to fully do not say anything wrong or talk lies, which I was not sure about. But to that we are going to be in just a minute. I want to also point out I'm biased. I'm heavily biased against artillery. So I have to say, every artillery nerf is something good in my books. I know this is very opinionated, so I can't fully give you an objective view. It is very, very subjective to me, okay? But yeah, let's just have a look at what Wargaming wants to tell us. Then we have a look at the tier 10 artillery pieces, and lastly, some thoughts in general. Basically, Wargaming wants to decrease the total stun ratio. They want to give variability to this vehicle type, and they want to decrease the damage share caused by SPGs. So, now, what do we have, or what is the big change? Artillery now receives 3 different shell types. One being the standard shell, the other one being the special shell, aka improved HE, and lastly an alternative shell. The standard shell is your carbon copy of the HE round you have on the live server. It's a carbon copy, it's exactly the same copy paste. But it has stun. And as you might know, everything on a Sandbox server has added hit points. So for example, the IS-7 has on live server 2400 HP. Here on the Sandbox server, it has 2950. So this is an increase of, 250 divided by 244 of 22.9%. So now, as nothing changed with this shell type right here, the standard shell, nothing changed, means that effectively it lost around 15 to 23% damage, if you just kind of approximate a little bit. This is important to note. So in general, your standard HE round on the artillery piece, which does stun, that deals less damage, which is a good thing. I personally think that artillery deals too much damage anyway right now. I just don't like that, to be honest, on the live server. It gets everything, it has stun, it has damage. So now with the HP rebalance, effectively it deals less damage, which is a good thing. The next thing is now the special shells. Those special shells apparently have higher penetration, however, I couldn't find yet an example of this, and have a larger burst radius. Plus, their damage is approximately 15% higher than their standard shells. And the point is, they should do roughly the same amount of damage like SPGs do on live server. Which makes sense roughly, because if they also change the HE for SPGs, like with the HE rework, the HE damage and so on, this makes sense, this totally makes sense, that they will do a different type of damage or roughly equal as much. But if we now look at what we had before, it will deal a little bit less damage than what it used to be percentage-wise, because we have around 20% increase in HP, 22% increase in HP on higher tiers, while artillery will only do 15% more damage. But yeah, the big drawback is that this HE round here has no stun. But however, it has added benefits of bigger splash radius. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute while I prepare the artillery pieces we have on tier 10. And as you probably see already, as I start to prepare this and do not know how to organize myself properly to make it more convenient for me to be quicker, you see that all artillery pieces will get an AP or heat round. Obviously, I do not have the time right now to grind through them to see what is their penetration loss for the AP rounds and so on. But you can see that they have decent chunks of penetration and that they deal damage. Far less damage than what we used to have. Wargaming talks about those shells have high penetration value and significantly lower but predictable damage if the shell penetrates. Basically, there will be like AP shells, but a small share of them can be heat shells. These shells will not stun. So now we have two types of ammunition which do not stun, and we have one type which does but deals less damage. I want to point out that Wargaming talks about predictable damage. I disagree, but I'm going to that in just a minute. I genuinely, looking at it, I dislike it. Because right now, artillery will have the most variety of different shell types. I'm like, really? Really now? Why does, in quotation mark, the easiest tank class get the most variety? The most interchangeable things? Why does normal tanks do not get special types of shells? Like, with really strong pros and cons. We just have standard shells, and we have non-standard special shells, which have more penetration. Mind blown. What a surprise, what a difference. Not like, for example, heat is less RNG or something, you know? That's something which I personally would liked. But yeah, they also crippled the normal HE of basically every tank. So you are screwed over. You don't have hash anymore. You can't play risky and say, you know what, I'm going to load HE rounds so I can probably one-shot the artillery piece, because if I don't one-shot it, it probably has enough time to aim at me and kill me because I'm at low HP, because it is at late game, you know. They castrated normal HE rounds. They removed the skill aspect of normal HE rounds, going for high risk, high reward plays, which I countlessly talked about it. But they are adding it to artillery. Like, what is going on? I dislike this incredible much. However, I think that Wargaming is on the right track with the special HE and the normal HE. I dislike getting blapped in my face for 600 by a T92, for example, in a nudist. By the way, not directed, just splash. Very much skill for missing me. Yeah, I'm a little bit salty about artillery. But yeah, I do like that Wargaming wants to give or force the player to take a side. Do you want stun and damage, or do you want higher damage but no stun, you know? I like that Wargaming wants to force them. But personally, I would, depending how this all turns out. Again, I didn't play anything. I do not have the time right now because studying is killing me with work. But I do want to point out, maybe think about not adding 15%, but making the gap between those shell types 25%. It sounds stupid, but I would say you get 25% stunned, or you lose 25% of your combat efficiency when you're stunned. So why not make it roughly eye for an eye? So, you know, make 25% less damage than your other shell, which doesn't stun, kind of like this, you know. Not making the normal shells stronger, but, you know, just making them... Yeah, I think you know what I mean. In general, though, I really dislike that Wargaming decided to keep penetration on artilleries. Why do you remove it from normal tanks, but keep it at the most RNG-based tank class in the game to make it even more frustrating, you know? I dislike this a lot. I genuinely dislike that artillery... From all the tanks on the Sandbox rework, why is RT allowed to penetrate with HE? I personally do not get that. I dislike that. And lastly, and this is important, I actually had to, again, test this, what I teased at the beginning. AP and heat rounds. Wargaming talks about predictable damage. And that's one huge load of horse poop. Seriously. Because all of those artillery pieces, except for the T261 and for the budget RT, are far from accurate. So you're not going to be the sniper XXX 007, you know? You're not going to snipe people properly and effectively. Sure, the accuracy system in World of Tanks allows you to snipe, but it won't be very, very effective, like it used to be back in the days. But, and this is the big problem, you're now giving a very high RNG-based class an ammunition type which is high RNG-based. Let me explain. A standard shell in World of Tanks has a specific module damage. So for example, we can now go on tanks.gg, have a look at a JAK Pan 700, and it has a module damage of 228. If you now, for example, have a look at the IS-7, it has an MREC HP of 210. So if you now add this up and get lucky with the saving throws, because every single module has a saving throw. For example, here ammunition rack has 27%. So if your ammo rack gets hit, you have a 27% chance that it gets damaged, or a 30% chance if you have the Deadeye perk, apparently. But I'm actually not sure if it's 3% really. Let's just have a quick look so I don't talk bogus again. Yeah, it is 3%, okay. So with a 30% chance, if you hit the ammo rack to make it blow up. But, and this is very, 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 very important, those damage to modules have also RNG. I do not know how much it is. This is not something I couldn't test. I don't know, it's 10%, if it's 25%, probably it is 25%, but this RNG is there, okay? Because you can full HP one-shot a JAK Pan and IS-7. You can full HP, blow it up, damage its ammo rack, easy peasy, it gets boom. No damaged ammo rack before, a clean red ammo rack in your post-game statistics. Clean red ammo rack. But, and this is again important, if you can also just damage it. So even though you have 228 module damage on a 170mm gun, you can still also only damage it, meaning you do less than 210 damage. So now we can scale this up. The F3 has a 183mm gun, which has 244 module damage. So it's an additional 16 module damage more. So meaning it is even more likely that if you get lucky and hit the ammo rack and get the 30 to 27% chance, you're going to ammo rack this IS-7 even more often. Again, we could have a look what is 224 times 0.75. It's 168 apparently. But yeah, now we can scale this up. The Object 2061 will most likely run around with these types of penetration values. Maybe they are still in the game, in the website. I'm actually not sure if they still... Yeah, they actually do still have AP rounds in it. Hell yeah, that's amazing. Because we actually can now look at those damage values or those shell values, damage per module. You can see now, for example, the GWE100 has 280 module damage. If they keep the same stats as before. That's a big if. So, the GWE100, for example, 280 module damage. Let's take a look at the biggest gun in the game. 320 module damage. It means it can... Well, we can have a quick look at the mouse. It can cleanly one-shot the mouse when it penetrates with AP. So, now we have... I probably think you now understand why I have this dilemma. 320 times 0.75. 240. So, in theory, if the module damage has plus minus 25% RNG, in theory, the T92 with AP should always be able to cleanly one-shot the IS-7. And now, this is where I think this is just huge loads of bogus. There is no predictability, there's just more RNG. There is so much more RNG if they introduce back AP rounds. Not only do you have to get lucky to hit, which is a loads of RNG, it's not predictable at all if you hit or not with AP rounds. Then you have to penetrate, depending on the angles, it's stupid. You have heat rounds on the Batchatillion art, which is also a 1200 damage clip. I really do not like this change. And lastly, the high caliber guns, T92, and probably even the Conqueror gun carrier, they have enough module damage to cleanly one-shot tier 10 heavy tanks, most tier 10 heavy tanks, except for super heavies, when they hit the ammo rack. I really do not like this, because this is not predictability. This is even more RNG put back into the game. Something I personally think we definitely do not like. Or do not need. And don't forget, those artilleries are more accurate than back in the days when the AP was around. Just so you keep that in mind. We can actually look here, 0.88 accuracy. Now it is 0.83, you know. The rate of fire is 1.22 rounds. It used to be 1.818. Sure, you do less damage, but you will probably have many trolls which are just fishing for those ammo racks. Because they can. And with having fast reload times and a more accurate gun, it might be easier than ever. But again, roll the dice. Make the coin flip. See if you get the 30% chance. And if you hit the ammo rack or even hit the target. I like the artillery changes. I dislike that they still have penetration. Like, they should just remove the penetration in general, I think, for HE rounds. If they do it on normal tanks, do it on artillery tanks as well. Wargaming. We do not need more RNG. Make artillery at least a predictable class. Because right now it is frustrating to fight against, because not only is it unpredictable if it hits you. If it hits you, it's massive damage. If it splashes you, it's still massive damage. If it splashes you, you're still getting stunned. For sometimes up to 20 seconds, depending what tier you're playing. And do not introduce back AP. We do not need more RNG. Again, this is just what I personally think right now, and I didn't play anything yet. So keep everything I just said with a grain of salt. But again, this is important to note that again here, I disliked it. I really dislike that they're reintroducing AP rounds, because they could blow open the door wide for more RNG. But yeah, those are my first thoughts, first impression on those changes. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. Please keep this up for debate, communicate, say what you think. We should have a good debate, discussion down below. We shouldn't say Wargaming, you stupid or something. That's not good feedback. We have to be in a good feedback culture to give good feedback. Even as it sounds like we are always ignored, which actually does sound like it sometimes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you. My name is RagingRaptor. Those were my thoughts. Cheers. Also, if you think I'm a whiny bitch, 2700 WNA definitely helps to get focused most of the time. I actually have people writing to me, yeah, I tried to focus you. But yeah, cheers.